Guys, so today's topic is AWS hybrid storage. Before we start the webinar, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Rahil Ahmed. I'm working as a pre-sales consultant for Redington Gulf. I've been working with AWS technology for the past 5 years. I have good hands-on experience, especially on the AWS infrastructure side, DevOps side, and I have worked on multiple projects during in the past, right? So today we are going to discuss about AWS hybrid storage. What are the hybrid storage offerings from AWS and how you can use it to deliver the optimal solution for your end customer or for your infrastructure, right? So let's get started. I'll just maximize my screen. Right. So what are the on-premises storage challenges? So there are multiple challenges when we talk about on-prem, right? Growing backup infrastructure cost. So when your infrastructure grows, the cost for backup also grows exponentially. And at times there are situations when you create application, when you host one application in on-prem, and the backup cost will be twice of that application. So it becomes very costly as your infrastructure grows, right? Then we have a bottleneck of storage capacity. There's a limit of storage capacity, and when you have to scale up, you have to scale up manually. You need to order hardware in advance. You need to guess the capacity that, okay, for my backup infrastructure, I would need 2 terabyte. So there is a lot of guesswork. You have to guess the capacity, and you're limited by limited resources available in your data center. All right. Uh, the third very common challenge is limited access to in-cloud data. So if you have a SaaS application hosted somewhere and you are backing up the whole application, SaaS-based application in your on-premises, then the backup software will have very limited visibility, and you are restricted with the in-cloud data, so you can't have the full visibility. Finally, managing offsite backup, which is very common and can be very tedious, especially with tape backup. So to follow the compliance requirement, you would be storing your offsite backup in a remote location. Shipment of all those offsite backups to remote location, managing the tape libraries, labeling it, and then when you have to do a restore, you have to again request the tape provider or the one who's managing the tape drives for you. The tape will be shipped back to your on-prem data center. You will put in the VTL, and then only you can do a restore. So it's a very long process, and it becomes very, very complicated when your infrastructure grows, right? So managing offsite backup is a really challenging activity in when it comes to on-prem storage, right? So what is an answer for that? How we can use uh, cloud storage, or how we can use hybrid model rather, to simplify our life? We'll discuss in today's webinar. So right. So what is the agenda for this webinar? We'll discuss about storage gateway. What is storage gateway? What it does? Because storage gateway is a key to hybrid storage when it comes to AWS. So how it works, we'll have a deep dive into storage gateway. We'll check the overview. We'll understand what are the different types of storage gateway available, how it can be configured, and how you can use it, and what are the possible use cases of AWS. We'll look into that as well. We'll then discuss about the new features. We'll have a deep dive session on the new features of the storage gateway. We'll check what are the new offerings from storage gateway. Then there will be a case study section where we will discuss 2 case studies, and we'll see how customers have simplified their life by using storage gateway. At the end, there will be a question answer session. So if you guys have any question, please note it down and we will try to answer it after the end of the session, right? So let's get started. What is AWS Storage Gateway? So we come across this term very often, right? A gateway. What is a gateway? A gateway generally is the entry point. Similarly, a storage gateway is an entry point for your on-premise application, on-premise resources to access the cloud storage. So what it does, it provides on-premises application access to the unlimited cloud storage. So anything can run on on-prem and it can use cloud storage via storage gateway, right? So storage gateway provides a standard set of storage protocol. So you can use iSCSI protocol, you can use SMB, you can use standard NFS protocol to use the cloud storage. So in this case, what is the advantage if you use the standard protocol? The advantage is you don't have to make any kind of modification in your application to support these protocol because you're already using it, right? So out of the box, you'll get the storage from cloud, and this can be mapped to your on-prem application with the standard protocol. So no modification required. It's just a plug and play where you onboard the storage gateway appliance, connect to the cloud storage, and start using it. Correct? Now, storage gateway supports basically most commonly three kind of use cases, three kind of hybrid cloud use cases, and these are not the only option. There are more use cases, but these are very, very common use cases for storage gateway. So one is, and by the way, we will have a deep dive session on each of these use cases. But predominantly, these are the three major use cases for storage gateway. Number one is moving backup and archive to cloud. So when you have a backup repository and a backup software is configured on-prem, you know that getting a backup storage is very painful activity. So you have to manage the capacity, you have to do all the guesswork, and then by the end of the day, when when everything is done, when the procurement raises the request, you get the hardware, and then only you come to use the real backup storage. So the easier way is to move backups and archive to cloud, and you use the ready-made cloud storage, which is available from AWS, to store your backups and archive. This is number one use case. Number two is to shift on-premises storage to cloud-backed file shares. So storage gateway, as we'll discuss in the upcoming slide, it can be configured as a file share. So if you have an application running on-prem which needs shared file storage, so you can use the storage gateway for that. We'll discuss in the upcoming slide. And number three would be to provide on-premise application with low latency access to the data stored in AWS. So you have on-premise application, they had a requirement for, let's say, block storage. So you can provide low latency access to the block storage, which actually sits in AWS. And it can be on S3 storage, which can uh, further be introduced into the tiered system. So you can use storage tier in S3. We'll see these three use cases in the upcoming slides. So this is on a high level, an overview of storage gateway. As you very well know, gateway is an entry point. So storage gateway is an entry point for your on-premises resource to leverage cloud storage. And the important thing is it supports storage protocols such as iSCSI, SMB, NFS, and it can be mapped to your on-premise application, existing application. Do not have to go through a change where they have to change the protocol set. That's not at all required. So you can use the ready-made storage as it is with the standard protocols, right? Now, what are the advantages of storage gateway? The advantages is you can manage rapidly growing customer data sets. So if you have a customer data set which grows exponentially, which grows very, very quickly, you can manage it through AWS Storage Gateway. So tens of thousands of customers are already using Storage Gateway, and they realize the benefit of it and how quickly they can get, let's say, petabyte of storage. It's available at your disposal. So whenever you need it, you get it. And you are charged only for what you use. You don't have to pay anything in advance. So let's say if you use 1 TB, you'll pay for 1 TB. There's no hidden charges. Hundreds of petabytes of storage in the managed cloud. So it can scale up as much as you want. So if you have petabyte size of data, not a problem. Storage gateway can handle it. Even when petabyte of data are ingested every day, there's no capacity restriction, so you can scale up very, very quickly. And when we compare with on-premises, that's the very important point. You can get 96% reduction, right? So that's a huge number when we compare with an on-premise storage solution. So these are some of the advantages of storage gateway. Now let's try to understand storage gateway with the help of a diagram, how it looks like, how it works, right? So in my left hand side, you can see the customer premise, and on my right hand side, you can see the AWS cloud. Between there is a layer, it's called storage gateway layer, right? So storage gateway appliance can sit in your data center in the customer premises. You can configure storage gateway on VMware ESXi. If you're on a virtualized infrastructure, yes, ESXi is supported. Hyper-V is supported. You can even configure storage gateway on an EC2 instance. And now, very recently, you also get a hardware appliance. You can get a hardware appliance for your storage gateways. So how it works? Basically, you'll import the appliance on your, let's say, virtualized infrastructure on VMware. You'll do the initial configuration so that it can communicate with your AWS accounts and storage gateway services can be activated. This all happens over HTTPS, so everything is secure. Once configuration is done, you can use Amazon S3 storage, Amazon S3 Glacier, Glacier Deep Archive for your tape drive, VTL, EBS volumes for your volume gateway, and AWS backup can also be integrated so that you have single point visibility of your overall backup infrastructure. In the customer premises, you just have to configure the appliance. It's a virtual appliance, it's an OVA file which you can import onto the hypervisor. And on the customer premises, now with the help of storage gateway, you can use file share using NFS SMB protocol. You can even get volumes through iSCSI, and you can also get access to the virtual tape library through iSCSI VTL. So all these three types of storage can be provided at your disposal with the help of storage gateway. Now, the important thing here is it can be integrated with your identity and access management. So AWS IAM is fully supported, and storage gateway can be integrated with IAM to manage the access. Uh, Also, KMS is supported. So if you're storing data in S3, you can use key management service to encrypt your data. And we know that KMS supports multiple types of encryption. So where you can manage the keys, where you can use AWS managed keys, a whole bunch of options are available. So you can very well have encrypted data on cloud. It also supports integration with CloudTrail so that you can check the audit logs, who did what at what point of time, and Amazon CloudWatch service. So you can monitor the storage gateway, critical services related to storage gateway. So it's very well possible. It's now possible to monitor the storage gateway performance and services also through CloudWatch. Right. So I hope this diagram demystifies most of the things what we are thinking about storage gateway. In a nutshell, this is how it looks like, and this is how it works. Right. So storage gateway can be configured. There are multiple options to configure storage gateway, and three types of gateways are supported. One is file gateway, one is volume gateway, and the other one is tape gateway. We'll discuss each type of the gateway in detail in the upcoming slide. First, let's go into the file gateway. So what does file gateway do? So file gateway allow you to store and access object in S3 from file-based application with local caching. So that's very important. You can cache the data locally. So even though your data is stored in Amazon S3 bucket, you can cache data in locally so that you get low latency access to these cache data from your application. And as we discussed, it supports NFS and SMB, so you can use it for both Windows and Linux machine. And file gateway communicates with storage gateway service over the HTTPS channel. That's for the activations, so you can activate the services over HTTPS. So this is where you register the AWS account, and it all happens over HTTPS, so it's secure. right? So once you configure file gateway, your files will be stored in Amazon S3 bucket, and your application can access the files, the local cached files locally. And let's say if the file is not cached, it will be pulled from Amazon S3 bucket, and it can be cached. Your application can then use NFS or SMB protocol to access the share, right? So what are the advantages? What are the benefit? So the benefit is you get low latency cached access to data in Amazon S3, right? So because we are doing a caching, so that's why we have low latency access. Support for NFS is there, so Linux machines are pretty much covered. Support for SMB is there, so Windows application are also covered. And with Windows, you can also use Windows ACL. So if you have a certain permission associated with your Windows files and object, you can very well use it, and you can very well implement it, right? And another benefit is one-to-one mapping between files and object in S3. So files and objects are mapped one-to-one in the S3 bucket. That's another advantage. So this diagram actually clarifies most of the things. And uh, if you have any question related to file gateway, we can discuss that after the session. But hopefully things would be clear. Now let's discuss about another type of gateway, which is volume gateway. And volume gateway, as you can guess, it provides you volume. It provides volume to your on-premise application. It works pretty much in the same way. So you have an appliance which is configured in the volume gateway mode, and it communicates with the storage gateway services over HTTPS. But this time, instead of getting volumes from S3, the volumes can be stored on EBS. And by the way, volume gateway can be configured in two mode. One is cached mode and other is stored mode. So what is cache mode? Cache mode means the data is cached locally onto your in your on premises, and stored mode means data sits locally, but a snapshot of it is taken into the cloud. So in case of a disaster, you can very well restore the whole volume from AWS. So there are two modes basically: cache mode and store mode. So the only difference in this case, instead of going to S3, your volumes will be stored in EBS in elastic block storage, right? And the snapshots will be in the form of EBS snapshots. The protocol will be changed. So in file gateway, the supported protocol was NFS SMB. Here, the supported protocol is iSCSI. So you can have an iSCSI initiator. The application can run an initiator, and it can connect to the target, basically, which will be in the AWS side. So with volume gateway, what are the benefits? Let's discuss that. It presents block storage over iSCSI in cached mode. So recently accessed data will be cached locally and in store mode. So either one mode can be configured. You can have your volumes in cache mode or store mode. Store mode, where everything would be stored locally, but the backup or the snapshot of the volumes will be stored in AWS. Uh, cost cost efficient incremental Amazon EBS snapshot of volumes are managed through AWS backup. What does it mean? So EBS snapshots are incremental by default, right? And you can manage the whole cycle of snapshots through AWS backup, where you can define policy, how frequently you have to take the snapshots, what is the retention policy. So everything can be defined in the AWS backup console. And you can also compress the data between gateway and cloud to minimize the storage charges. So it's very well possible. The data compression is supported. Now let's discuss about the third type of gateway, which is tape gateway, right? So tape gateway, as we discussed, it supports iSCSI VTL, so virtual tape library. So in this case, it will be your backup software or the backup application running on premises. It will make a request to the tape gateway, right, to access the tape library. Tape libraries will be stored in Amazon S3, but it can be archived to more cost-effective storage, which is S3 Glacier or Deep Archive, which is very cost-effective for long-term archival. It works. The workflow would be as follows. So you have a backup application which sits on premises. It makes a request to virtual tape library, and the tape gateway will come into the picture, will activate the gateway services, right? And then you'll be able to access the tape library, which is stored in Amazon S3. In S3, you have an option to, in, to put lifecycle rules, so you can transition the data to S3 Glacier or S3 Deep Archive. So what it does, so it emulates the physical tape library. So you no longer need physical tapes. You can have virtual tape, and it supports ISCA CBTL protocol. The tape gateway is compatible with major backup application. It could be your networker, let's say if you're using EMC networker backup application, it is supported. So most of the backup applications are supported and are compatible with ISCA CBTL. So you can use tape gateway. Archive virtual tapes are stored in S3 Glacier Deep Archive, which is very cost effective. To give you an example, it costs just $1.5 to store a terabyte of data, so a month. So very cost effective. And you can also put archives in S3 Glacier. And by the way, this all can be automated through lifecycle management, lifecycle rules, where you can transition the data from standard storage to cost-effective S3 Glacier. And it's one time. Once you set up, it happens automatically, right? So that's in a nutshell. That's what Tape Gateway does. Now, what is new? What is new in all those gateway? So we'll discuss that one by one. Let's talk about File Gateway. So File Gateway now supports S3 Object Lock. What is Object Lock? Object Lock means it supports WORM. So you can write once and read many times. So you make sure that the objects cannot be changed. So you can implement S3 object locks. SMB ACLs are supported for file access control. So if you can have Windows ACL set up in your file in any of the files or folders. SMB client encryption, signing enforcement option is there, and then there are performance improvement. So the performance increase is up to 4 gigabits per second, and read performance improvement is 4.8 Gbps, which is great. That mostly comes because of the compression. Now let's talk about Volume Gateway. What's new in Volume Gateway? So integration with AWS Backup. It's a service from AWS where you can centrally manage all your backups. So now Volume Gateway is integrated with AWS Backup, where you can manage retention of the snapshot and you can schedule your EBS snapshot. That's very handy, and that's a very good feature. So you can centrally set up a policy, and snapshots will happen automatically, right? And then volume attach detach feature is also enhanced. So volume attach detach to move volumes between the gateway, that is also something which you can do with volume gateway. We'll talk about tape gateway. So tape gateway now supports S3 Glacier Deep Archive, which is very cost effective service, and it can be a very good option for long term archive. It supports IBM Spectrum Protect TSM on Linux. So a new backup application is now supported. So if you are on IBM Spectrum, you can very well use Tape Gateway. The tape size has increased from 2.5 to 5 terabytes. So it's double the capacity. Now you will have 5 terabytes of tape size. And then it comes with improvement in write performance and read performance. Write performance is faster. It can increase up to 2.7 Gbps, and read performance also is improved. It can increase up to 2 Gbps. So performance improvement is also there. In terms of region, Europe, Stockholm region is supported. You have Middle East, Bahrain region is also supported. You can now have storage gateway in Bahrain region. Hong Kong, Sao Paulo, and other regions are also added. So as of currently 20 regions are supported, including China, Beijing, and Gulf Cloud in US West. Then we now have hardware appliances available for storage gateway. So you don't, if you want to a better throughput, you can go with the hardware appliance. So instead of using a virtual appliance importing into the VMware infrastructure, you can go with the hardware appliance. Currently, it's available in EU, but very soon we are expecting it to be available in Middle East region as well. So the hardware appliance, what is special about the hardware appliance? It supports large cache, 12 terabyte, and before it was 5 terabyte. Now it's 12 terabyte of cache is also supported, and then you have 10G connectivity with SFP plus network. In terms of enterprise feature, high availability for storage gateway can now be configured. So you can now have a highly available storage gateway setup for your VMware environment. You now have increased visibility and insight. That's because integration with CloudWatch is possible. Monthly maintenance window option is also there, where you can configure the maintenance window and you can do the management related to storage gateway. Private link is supported, so storage gateway can be accessed privately, and tag based access controls and policies can now be set up in storage gateway. So these are all new features, and these are very exciting, to be honest. Let's talk about use cases now. So we touch base on these use cases, but we'll deep dive in these slides. So the first use case which we discuss is to move on-premise backup to cloud, right? So how does it work? So we have a picture here. We have a diagram where you have a database server, you have an application server, and you have a backup server, and you can have multiple gateways: file gateways, volume gateway, and tape gateway. End of the day, it will connect to your storage gateway managed services. It will activate those services, and targets can be selected. Appropriate targets can be selected as well. So for example, if you're using file gateway, your target would be Amazon S3 bucket. If you're using a volume gateway, your target can be EBS volumes, and you can start using the EBS volume, or EBS snapshot also can be configured depending upon the mode of volume gateway, whether it is stored mode or whether it is in cache mode. And then the tape library, the tape gateway, sorry, it can use the tape library in S3, or it can use S3 Glacier Deep Archive, right, to store your backups. So with database server, you can have a file share. Let's say if you're backing up your database, you can back up in the file share, and that file share will actually sits in the Amazon S3 bucket. But in case of restore, you can quickly download the backup from S3 and you can do a restore. When we talk about application servers, the volume will be presented as an iSCSI target. So volumes can, again, the snapshots can go in the EBS. The volume snapshot can be in the form of EBS snapshots, and it can be configured. And in case of a disaster, you can very well restore those EBS snapshots. Third one is a backup server, where you are using iSCSI VTL, virtual tape library, and instead of using the physical tape, you're using tape gateway to store the backups in Amazon S3, which can be transitioned into S3 Glacier or S3 Deep Archive. So you can maintain your backup workflow while reducing your backup infrastructure cost on premises. So as you can see, on premises, do not have any kind of hardware whatsoever except for these appliances. That's it, and it can be virtual as well. So this can significantly reduce your backup infrastructure cost, right? Along with that, you'll get a better performance also. All right, so this is about the backup use case. Now you can have file gateway for on-premises backup. So you can configure file gateway to back up your on-premises server. So it supports NFS and SMB as we discussed. You can mount share directly on the database server and application server. So if you have an application server, you can use the UNC to mount that share directly onto the server. So files are stored durably in S3, and lifecycle rules, as we discussed, can be uh, can be written for the data transition into multiple storage tier. Then you can support for Windows ACL. So if you want to set certain permissions on certain objects, you can very well use Windows ACL to set those permissions. Local caching option is also available for backups. S3 object lock, you can very well put the locks on the S3 objects so that you make sure that the object cannot be overwritten. Bandwidth optimized because it supports compression, and only changes are transferred. So that's very important. So once, let's say, if you're making a changes in the in the files, so only the deltas are synced, not the whole files. So what are the benefits? Benefit is reduce the on-premises storage for backup. You can easily integrate with your SAP workload, SQL Server, Oracle, HDFS if you are managing Hadoop cluster, and other application, because these applications have significant requirement for backup storage, and at times it takes a lot of time to procure the hardware and to make sure that the backup infrastructure is ready. So the answer, you can move to file gateway and use the local NFS share as SMB share to store the backup files. You can easily restore your backup to on-prem or onto the EC2 instance itself, right? So you have the flexibility. When you're using a file gateway, you can do a restore on-prem or onto the EC2 instance, which runs on AWS, of course. So let's try to understand with the help of a diagram. So you have an app and DB server. The file gateway will present the file share from S3 bucket through NFS and SMB protocol. And then you can implement lifecycle rules to transition the data. So the data which is not accessed regularly, you can transition it into a cost-effective storage. Correct? Let's move to another use case, which is volume gateway for on-premises backup. What does that mean? So you have an application server. It can connect to the volume gateway to get the EBS volumes, uh, get the EBS volume and present it to the application server. So application server can connect to the EBS volume via iSCSI protocol. And of course, it will be integrated with AWS Backup, where you can centrally define policies. Let's say if the volume gateway is configured in stored mode, you can define policies, how frequently the snapshots have to be taken, and then how for how long snapshots have to be retained. Let's say 30 days, after 30 days, the older snapshot will be deleted. So features, let's talk about that. So it presents a cloud-based iSCSI block storage volumes to on-premises application. On-premises cache of recently accessed data, we discussed that earlier. Backup volumes as EBS snapshot. So your volumes are backed up as EBS snapshot in AWS. It integrates with AWS Backup Service to coordinate volume backup and retention. We have discussed that as well, where you can set up policies for your EBS snapshots, how long you have to retain those snapshots, how frequently you want to take the snapshot. So all this is possible because now it is integrated with AWS Backup. So what are the benefits? Benefits are you can store volumes, backups securely and reliably. So as you know, EBS snapshots goes into the S3 bucket, so it is very reliable, and and of course it is secure because everything happens over HTTPS channel. Restore backup on premise or in cloud as EBS volume. So you have both options here. Also, you'll get the flexibility. You can do the restore of the backup on prem or as an EBS volume itself. Right. Now let's talk about the third use case, which is tape gateway for your on-premises backup. So in this case, we have your backup server, and it is using iSCSI VTL protocol to communicate with the tape gateway, and the tape gateway in turns activate the storage gateway services to facilitate tape library access, which is actually an Amazon S3 bucket, right? And the long-term archives can be transitioned into S3 Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive. So the workflow is pretty much same. Here, the application server is replaced by the backup server. So it can be a number of backup servers are supported, whether it is Spectrum, whether it is Networker, Most of the backup software, backup servers are supported. So what are the features? So in this case, you're completely eliminating physical tape library. You're using a virtual tape library through tape gateway. So iSCSI VTL interface compatible with leading backup application, as we discussed. So active tapes are stored in Amazon S3, again, which is very reliable storage. Ejected tapes stored in S3 Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive for the cost-effective storage. You can automatically automatic fixity checking. So if there is any error happening on the on the tape library, it can be automatically corrected. So you don't have to manage that. That's the point. And then data compression, encryption in transit address, both are supported. In transit, you will use HTTPS through SSL certificate, and data at rest, basically, data at rest will be ensured by KMS service, where you manage the KMS service and you encrypt your backup. Right. So what are the benefits? You drop in replacement for the tape libraries, tape media, and archiving services. So you can save a lot of money if you go with the virtual tape library. Maintain existing backup workflow. So same, you continue to use the same backup software. You don't have to replace the backup software. You will continue the same backup workflow. Whatever policies you have set in the backup server, you can continue using it. The only thing is we're replacing the tape physical virtual tapes. So it eliminates the hassle of physical tape. Store archive tapes durably and reliably in Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive, which is very costly, roughly 1.5 terabyte a month. That's very, very cost effective, right? Now you can shift on-premises storage to cloud backed file shares. So if you have a file share, you can very well use file gateway to get that file share. And we have discussed that. So again, the point here is you can eliminate the NAS storage and you can rely completely on the file gateway to provide you reliable file shares. We have discussed that in detail. Again, it supports NFS and SMB. So I think we have covered this already. So I'll move to the next slide. The important thing is here in this slide, is that we can eliminate the NAS storage completely and you can rely completely on file gateway. Low latency access for applications stored for application to cloud data. So since we are using caching in between, we are caching the data locally. So yes, we can provide low latency access to our on-premise application. And when it comes to data ingestion, there are multiple options. You can do data sync. You can ingest the data via data sync, or you can ingest the data with Snowball. Multiple services are available for data ingestion. You have up to 16 terabyte of local cache per gateway, right? Which is a significant number. So 16 terabyte of data can be cached locally, so which is a good number. It's a fully managed gateway cache provided with the low latency access to the data. So the caching process, the whole process is fully managed, so you don't have to worry about that. You just have to define your cache capacity, what should be the size of your cache, and you're done. That's it. So your refresh cache at the bucket will happen at the prefix level. So in S3 bucket, you have multiple prefixes. So caching can happen at the prefix level. So that's also supported. So what are the benefits? We'll get low latency access. That's the most important point. The application can still get low latency access even though the data sits on AWS. So that latency is not a challenge at all. So data is stored. The important thing is data is stored cost effectively and centrally in the cloud. And you have improved the efficiency as well as reliability of your data. So it can be restored quickly because S3 is a very reliable storage, right? It comes with an SLA, 11 nines of durability, right? 99.999 11 nines of durability. So it is stored in a durable manner. So rest assured your backup would be taken care, right? Now, this slide actually shows you a comparison between traditional and cloud-based backup. So in traditional backup, it's costly, right? You need capital to stand up the same infrastructure for other regions. So if you are replicating the backup, you have to replicate the whole backup infrastructure to another region, which is very, very costly, right? And the second thing is, as your application, as your infrastructure grows, as you have more number of application, your backup infra will grow exponentially, right? So it will become very costly. Traditional backup requires us to maintain multiple master and media server. That's another channel. So you maintain all those multiple master and media servers. So the high availability aspect. You need resource staff to maintain this infrastructure, and then you have licensing cost of VTLs and other types of storage. But in cloud based backup, the beauty is you pay for what you use. There is no upfront cost. So let's say you use 1 terabyte, you'll pay only for 1 terabyte, and you can scale up whenever you want. So tomorrow you have more infrastructure on prem. The backup infrastructure can also grow without manually provisioning anything. It grows itself. It's an automated process. So with cloud-based backup, you can reduce your backup infrastructure management. You can scale up the usage as you went up. The EBS snapshots for daily backups are also available. So with you can have a daily backup of your volumes. You have storage gateway for point in time recovery. So you can do a point in time recovery. Let's say if a disaster happened at 11:10 a.m., so you can recover the data till that point. So point in time recovery is also supported. So all this means you have considerable saving when you go with the cloud-based backup solution. New features we have discussed. So these are some common questions from the end customer of storage gateway. The initial challenge was there was no high availability for the storage gateway appliance. So that's why AWS has introduced high availability for VMware based gateway. We are expecting high availability for Hyper-V based gateway very soon. It will be launched very soon. So initially, customers do not have the visibility for storage gateway metrics. They were not able to monitor the performance of the gateway. Now it is integrated with CloudWatch, so logging and metrics are centrally managed from the gateway console. Uh, Customer asked to align gateway software updates, company maintenance, Windows, and IT policies. So that was another challenge where software updates, company maintenance, Windows and IT policies have to be taken care by the customer. But now you have new maintenance option for granular control over software updates. So you decide when you want to do an update, right? So what was it? So and what are the benefits? So we will discuss that part as well. So high availability for the gateway tapes running on VMware. So you now have the high availability for the gateway appliance itself. You can now have health check integrated with VMware, right? Provide application level monitoring. So you can have health checks associated with the gateway. You can monitor the application, including your SMB shares. You can iSCSI availability. So all those metrics can be monitored. And gateway restart on service interruption. So you can restart the gateway services when there is a service interruption. So all this means now it is enterprise ready product. So enterprises can consume it, and we'll discuss in the case study. Actually, many of the enterprises are already using storage gateway. You have HA for storage appliance, especially with the VMware hypervisor. You do have an HA option, and gateway will recover for most of the service interruption automatically, right? So the services can be, if in case of the service is interrupted, it can be started automatically within 60 seconds, and it maintains a local cache as well. So no configuration, nothing would be lost. So that's the benefit. Now I just wanted to show you the storage gateway metrics, which can be fetched from CloudWatch. So here's a screenshot for that. You'll have real-time visibility into the cache utilization, so you can see how much cache you have used, whether you're hitting your cache limit, how is your IO performance, and lot other metrics are supported. And you can centrally manage it, and view it through CloudWatch console. Administrator can actually monitor the performance, cache metrics to tune the resources based on application need. So let's say if your application needs more cache, so you can monitor the performance, you can set an alert, and then you can increase the cache limit. Similarly, CPU usage, memory usage, all those things can be monitored as well, right? High cloud traffic can prompt and increase the cache size. So yeah, uh, with the cloud watch metrics, it is possible to monitor and increase the cache whenever needed, right? So we'll discuss about the case studies now. So Kellogg's, everyone knows, it's a leading cereal company, right? Second largest producer of cookies, crackers, and savory snacks in and leading North American frozen food company. I think everybody knows Kellogg's, right? So what is the problem? Problem was migrating data center and application to AWS. Many on-premises database and assets to migrate. They have a huge number of backup and archive. High backup cost was there, and with commercial software, because they had to use commercial software to back up the databases, right? So what they did, the solution was to use file gateway backup for SAP on Oracle environment. Hybrid backup strategy they've applied. So one backup copy sits locally and one backup goes to AWS. And archives of the SQL backup, SQL database, Hadoop cluster, and other application also goes to AWS via file gateways. So keep on-premises access to in-cloud data. So they continue to have an on-premise access for the in-cloud data, which is fine. But the backups related to the databases, SAP, Oracle, and other workloads move to cloud. And what was the result? What was the outcome? 90% reduction, approximately 90% reduction in the backup cost, eliminating the backup software. So SQL backups can directly go to the file share. You don't need a software for that, right? You get a UNC, you store your backup into the shared file share, and you don't need a backup software. So it was eliminated completely. They achieved 90% reduction. With a few terabytes of storage on premise, get access to hundreds of terabytes storage and backup in cloud. So because they are doing a caching, so they cached some of the data to on-prem. So they're using only literally like few terabytes of storage on-prem. But the bulk of the backups, bulk of the heavy lifting was done in the AWS side, where they have hundreds of terabytes of storage and backup. So that's how they managed to reduce 90% of the cost. We'll take a look at another case study, which is for analog devices. It's a leading manufacturer of integrated circuits, DSPs, and multiple electronic equipment. Right? What was their problem? So the problem was backing up to the physical tape, and that those tapes were sent off to an offsite location. So they were backing up the whole application into the physical tape, and those tapes were shipped to a remote location. Lengthy, unreliable recovery of data from tapes. No new backup budget was approved. Couldn't disrupt the existing operations. So whatever operations they're doing currently, they're not in a situation to disrupt those operations. The problem was lengthy, unreliable recovery of data because the backup was on offsite. So whenever there was a disaster, they had to request the person who managed the offsite backup. It was shipped to the data center, and it's a lengthy cycle, so it takes time to do a restore. Now, what they did, so EMC Networker, that was the backup software, was connected to tape gateway. So the backup software was connected to the tape gateway, which eliminated physical tape. They were using a virtual tape library, which in turn sends the backup to S3. This is for the tape backup. Once they identified the data has to go and transition into a long-term archive, they started using the Amazon S3 Glacier, and the data, let's say 6-month-old data or 8-month-old data, automatically get transition into the S3 Glacier storage. And what was the outcome? There was no change in the backup workflow. They will continue to using EMC networker, whatever policy they have set in the networker. it continues to run in the same fashion. The only thing was the introduction of the virtual tape library instead of physical tape library. And what they achieved 50% cost reduction, parallel backup for 1 year, then turn off the physical tape. So parallelly, they were backing up the backups were happening for a year, and they reached a point where they could completely eliminate the physical tape and phased out offsite archive in 3 months. So a long-term archive can also happen after 3 months, and it's one time. So once you define the policy, it continues to happen. So this again, this is one of the case study where customer use the storage gateway to reduce their backup cost. So we'll discuss about the summary what we have discussed so far. So uh, we have discussed about the standard storage protocols like iSCSI, NFS. So what does it mean and what benefit it gives to the end customer? It means the customer do not have to change any of their existing application. They can use the application as it is, and they can continue to use the cloud storage. The another feature which we discussed is fully managed cache. So the caches are fully managed. You just define your cache capacity, and everything will be managed by the gateway. What does that mean, and what is the benefit of it? This means that your application will get low latency access to frequently used data. So even though the data actually is in cloud, but the application on-prem will not notice any latency when they access the frequently used data. The third feature which you discussed was automatic and optimized data transfer, and this means you have minimized your network bandwidth. You're using less bandwidth for data transfer. Uh, Another feature is automated hybrid workflow. That means you're leveraging in-cloud processing. You're not relying on traditional uh, process where you manually have to define policies to do certain things. You're leveraging in-cloud processing. Multiple deployment option. So it supports, what does that mean? It means it supports multiple configuration. You can have different configuration depending upon your need. Another feature is security and compliance. So what does that mean? That means it's an enterprise ready product. It meets all your enterprise customer needs. And it is managed from AWS console and CLI, command line interface. So mostly like most of the regular activities you will be performing through an AWS console, right? But there are options to use CLI, and you can use CLI also for managing the storage gateway. Now, what does that mean, and what benefits it will offer? It means simplified management and monitoring, and then pay-as-you-go pricing, which means it is very cost effective. So that's what we have discussed so far, and that's the summary. That's all we have for storage gateway. Now, questions. So I've dropped my email, and in case if you need any clarification, if you need any help, feel free to reach out to me. All right.
All right. Thank you so much. That will be all then. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'll stop the sharing now.